One of our stated goals with Convenience Matters is to present timeless information. That is, ideas that will be fresh 6 months or a year later as the day they were recorded. This episode was recorded before the coronavirus pandemic created a brand new normal. The ideas remain timeless and great food for thought whenever you're able to act upon them. Enjoy.
You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Aluminum cans. Something you likely give very little thought about beyond a great beverage container and a pantry item. But today we're going to learn some fascinating facts about aluminum, and if nothing else, you will leave here with an ability to ace a Jeopardy category. Welcome to Convenience Matters. I'm Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
Can it, Carolyn? This is Jeff Lenard, also at NACS.
Can it, Jeff? Well, thanks for listening. Like I said, we're going to talk about aluminum cans, aluminum bottles, and how they play in not only sustainability, but our beverage categories within convenience stores. And we're joined by Scott Breen, Vice President of Sustainability from the Can Manufacturers Institute. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And podcast host as well.
And podcast host, yes.
Sustainability Defined. So Scott is a very knowledgeable expert on this subject. We want to talk about a bunch of different things, but let's first get started with what is the Can Manufacturers Institute?
So the Can Manufacturers Institute is a trade association that represents can manufacturers and their suppliers in the United States. So food cans, beverage cans, aerosol cans, we represent those people that make those cans.
All made with aluminum and steel.
Aluminum and steel, yeah. Aerosol cans can be made with both. But yes, for the most part, beverage cans, aluminum, food cans, steel, and we make more than 100 billion cans every year.
So that was the $200 category in Jeopardy, or question, I should say.
Yeah, and I assume the next thing is, when we talk about convenience stores and we work for convenience store business, and it's like, oh yeah, what do they deal with? And then it's usually some shortcut to something simple, but each of our associations are incredibly complex in terms of the issues that we care about. But like in summary, what are the issues that keep you up at night or drive the association to think about what is the long-term future of what your mission is?
So there is a part of what we do that involves trade and tariffs and things like that. But my job is to focus on sustainability. And what's interesting to me is that the Can Manufacturers Institute for years, decades, has been focused on increasing our recycling rate. For instance, there was something called the Great American Can Roundup, where they collected many millions of cans, where they had Boy Scouts out there collecting cans from people who bring it to the scrapyard. And it was a charitable thing. That's what's great about aluminum cans is there's a high economic value. So you can do programs like that where you can collect enough cans where you can have a charitable component or people are getting money. And then the other thing that they did way back when is they started something called the Curbside Value Partnership. So CMI and the Aluminum Association made this, and it became what we know today as the Recycling Partnership, which is the leading national nonprofit on recycling. People often don't realize that it was the aluminum can industry and the Aluminum Association that were really behind what became the Recycling Partnership.
And they're everywhere. I see them at EPA events. If not becoming, they are the voice of how to fix or help curbside recycling in the United States.
Yeah, and they just came out with this 2020 State of Curbside report. It has a lot of great information in it if people are looking for, what percent of people have curbside recycling? What is the impact of that? That report gives some great data on all those things.
And so, can manufacturers, you've been around for a while, and all of a sudden, here we are in 2020, and it feels like everybody else caught up to you guys, right? That you're now the cool kids of recycling.
We're having a moment.
Yes. And so when you look at
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Eye rolls. Yes.
No, I have to say that the podcast I do, Sustainability Defined, our tagline is we define sustainability one concept and one bad joke at a time. So I appreciate all of this. And also during my interview, I remember the first round interview for this job that I'm now, I remember at the end, I made some joke about like, oh, well, I hope I didn't give canned responses. And they laughed, so I felt good. Like, okay. I went for the bad joke and it worked. But. So I'm with both of you on all the things.
And we're not going to kick the can down the road now. We're going to address things today. But we have more, and they're all dad jokes, and they apply somewhere.
And mom.
But, yes.
It's on
equal opportunity,
it's okay.
bad joke
But when we look at our industry, we are well suited towards cans because we've talked about this stat over and over again. When we ask consumers, when they come to a convenience store, besides buying gas, you go inside the store, why are you going there? Are you buying a beverage? Are you buying food? Are you buying something else? And 53% say a beverage. And then you look at the beverage category, and it's full of items that are thought of as coming in cans. I think primarily, we'll just start with energy drinks. They're pretty much always in a can. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for that?
Honestly, I don't know if there's like a flavor reason or something like that. I think people see it. There's some general things that are good about a can, right? That it chills fast, and then all the environmental components. That the aluminum within it can be recycled over and over again, that it has a high economic value, and I can go into more details on those. But I think a third part about choosing a can is the fact that you can have a 360-degree marketing opportunity on the can. And I know with some like Monster drinks, they actually have cans that they've made where it's very tactile. Is that the right word? Where the way you feel it,
Taction.
it feels different.
Yeah, we learned the word taction a couple podcasts ago. Yeah.
Okay. So I think given all of those reasons, maybe that's why they're in it. But I'm not sure if there's something that's energy drink specific.
Well, but they're also portable, right? So convenient.
Of course.
I mean, I know when like we go camping, we bring cans more often than bottles, of course, full of rarely nutritious, helpful beverages,
Liquid
of
bread.
course. Yes.
Liquid bread.
So, but I mean, they're packable. You can crush them down. You can bring them down, and then of course bring them back out and recycle them. But it's the convenience factor, really, and it's the sizes. I mean, you get like little tiny sodas.
Yeah, the cute one,
big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had said that cans are having their moment. I think that particularly applies to beer because if I remember, companies like Sam Adams for a while said they'd acquire a new company. If the company had a canning operation, they'd say, okay, we don't need this part. We're just going to have our bottles. But now you have more municipalities that are in the DC area in particular saying we're not going to recycle glass anymore. We're going to recycle other things, but glass, you have to take it someplace specific. And combined with the new technology in cans, with the linings, et cetera, now Sam Adams has a number of different items that are in a can. And you're really seeing, like you mentioned, the labels with energy drinks. That's where all the excitement is in labels because it's a 360 label on those beers, and they have a lot of really, really cool designs. And so beer in particular is having an aluminum can moment.
Yeah, we are dominant in craft beer, and I think part of it also is that it maintains the quality of the product because light and oxygen are really kind of the enemies of maintaining freshness, and the can helps block out the light and the oxygen.
So I learned something really, this is not the first time we've met. We've talked before and our organizations have worked together. We put together a toolkit on recycling, can and bottle recycling. And that's at convenience.org. Go ahead, go download it. But besides that, I also have learned some really cool things over the years, hence why I figured this is like an amazing Jeopardy category, which is going off what you just said about the right thing staying in the can and not like getting into it like sunlight and whatnot. But with the linings of the can, I'd never even thought about it. But how much more can you tell me about can linings and as it applies to both freshness, food safety, all the things that really make why a can is a really cool packaging?
Sure. I mean, so just quickly with linings, I mean, they are there for safety, for quality, and to maintain that freshness, right? And the things that are in there, we're constantly thinking about what linings can go in there to get all those positive benefits. And beyond the linings, in terms of the other cool things about the can, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the aluminum that is in your beverage can, that it can be recycled infinitely over and over again, any loss in quality. That's what I think people don't realize is that we have to start thinking beyond what can go in the bin and what actually happens to it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's cool about the can is that there's this existing circular system that once you put a can in your recycling bin or cart, within 60 days often, it goes back on the store shelf as a can. So not only is aluminum unique in that it can be recycled over and over again without any loss in quality, but the other part that makes it unique is that it often gets turned into a new can. And that can be recycled at the end of its useful life. And we go round and round from there. So there's a lot of talk about circular economy, which we can get into, but we often say that the can is the textbook example of the circular economy.
And there's no loss in quality, even with the linings.
Yeah. So some of the linings, they burn off in that high melt process. I'm only talking about the aluminum within the can, which makes up the vast majority of the can.
And also, as you head into the summer months, one of the things that when we visit retailers, we talk about growlers, for instance, where they have the 32-ounce growlers. Growlers are really big. And and growlers are cans that are growlers. And when we talk to people, whether it's in Miami or other places, they say, hey, in the summer, cans are better because you're allowed to take them to pools. You're allowed to take them to the ocean. You're allowed to take them to places
Just don't put them in them.
Right.
Don't put it in the pool.
Right.
Yeah.
We put them in the recycling bin afterwards. But there's a lot of things that are conspiring in a positive way to give cans their moment. And in terms of the sustainability, which is the focus of what you do, you use the word plastic, and there's an immediately associated a negative with that. It's not seen as a positive about portability or anything like that. Purely microplastics are also plastics, and just everything related to that must be inherently bad for the environment. And then you look at aluminum cans or steel cans or something like that, and that's not associated with them. And I imagine a lot of that is because a can can be a can can be a can. So there's a lot that we can see more in our stores in terms of what people are looking for. In the store, you can tell, which is probably just as important.
Yeah, and I think there are some other key differences beyond the fact that you can recycle it over and over again. That economic value I mentioned. So we recycle 45 billion cans a year in this country, and that's about 5 million an hour. And the economic value of those cans is $800 million because the aluminum beverage can is the most valuable material in the recycling stream. It's worth about 3 times the PET that is typically in a plastic bottle. And that's one difference. And the other difference is that the no downcycling. PET sometimes gets exported to other countries, or it gets turned into things like a carpet or a shirt that isn't likely to be recycled at the end of its useful life. So when you look at economic value, when you look at how many times you can recycle it, when you look at what it's getting turned into, and then also the efficiency. I brought up the recycling partnership earlier. So in their Bridge to Circularity report, that's another report they've put out, they were talking about the amount of plastic we'll need to meet some of the recycled content goals a lot of companies have put out. People might have seen that some companies are saying, we will put 50% recycled content in plastic bottles. Well, you need a lot of plastic back to do that. And so they were saying that to meet those commitments, you would actually need an additional amount, because when you recycle PET, you lose a third of it in that process. With aluminum, it's less than 2%. So that's another difference.
So the American Beverage Association, who we've talked with a lot at NACS, and they have a campaign called Every Bottle Back.
Yeah.
Now, that's really cool, and exactly what you're talking about, how you want to get those bottles back so they can put the plastic bottles back into the economy, get them made into something. Mm-hmm. So when they say that, every bottle back, do they mean cans too?
Yeah. I mean, if you ask them, they say that they want all the containers back, which is great. We want them back to make new cans, like I was saying earlier. So, I think it's great that they're trying to do something to get all the containers back. Like I was saying, we don't have the same problems that PET has necessarily because we have this existing circular system to process, like I said, 5 million cans an hour. Not only do we want people to think about getting all the containers back, but it says every bottle back, and it's talking about just getting it back. We want people to take the next step. What happens after you get it back? And that's where I think even the biggest differences lie. And the most important thing, what is this thing turning into?
And then how do you do it? That's something that you and I have worked at or are working at. And any of our listeners that do want to help us, we need that, because on-the-go recycling is, I don't want to say broken or non-existent, but it's about as... It's struggling just as much as curbside recycling. Curbside recycling is outside your house, that blue bin, whether it's small or a big toter or something like that, or your apartment building or whatever. But on the go refers to not only the parks and the schools, but convenience stores.
Sure.
And so that's something that our can and bottle resource, the can and bottle recycling toolkit that we put together, helps lay out a little bit, because when people are throwing out their trash at convenience stores, when they're cleaning out their cars, we've heard from consumer surveys that 53% of Americans are cleaning out their cars when they're fueling up. But Jeff, what's that real number?
100%.
100%. We've all done it. Maybe not every single time, but
Sure.
we clean out the car while we're sitting. It only takes 3 minutes. So you find that bottle, and then what do you do with it? Well, there needs to be a place for that to go. And I think that's a next step. And as all these different groups, the Recycling Partnership and NACS and CMI, and that's Can Manufacturing Institute Manufacturers Institute for short, when we all come together, that we can help build those programs for retailers.
Yeah. So let me first say something about curbside recycling and then on-the-go recycling. So with curbside recycling, we know that about half of Americans have automatic access to curbside recycling. They don't have to opt in. And that is a big deal, because the amount of access you have determines the amount of recycling you do. So the average American household generates 20 pounds of aluminum beverage cans each year. If you only have drop-off access, like the kind of recycling where you have to take it somewhere, then we only get 3 of those 20 pounds. If you have curbside in bins, then we get 6 of those 20 pounds. But if you have the best curbside in carts, big carts with robust education, we get 12 of those 20 pounds.
That's a lot.
But then with on the go, our understanding from Beverage Brands is that about 40% of cans are consumed away from the home. We've heard different amounts on that, but regardless, the point is there's a lot of cans away from the home. And convenience stores, you guys are totally right, that's where a lot of people are disposing of cans. And it's important that at convenience stores, it's just as convenient to buy it as it is to recycle it. And I know, Carolyn, we've talked about putting bins, at the pump. I know I filled up on a recent road trip and there was just the garbage there, and I feel like there's almost a negative emotion there where I feel bad that I don't have the right place to put it. And I think it's an opportunity for convenience stores to provide that so that people feel good. I appreciate that they're providing this. I think it enhances brands and gives a good customer experience if you make that available.
Yeah, we heard that from focus groups. We've heard that when we survey, and then also heard that in focus groups. And people are saying, I'll drive around with these things in my car, or if there were something like this, I'd love that. But I want to go back to something with consumers related to confusion.
Sure.
If it's confusing, that makes it difficult and people won't do it. And with plastic, there's numbers that are 1 to, I don't know what they are.
The resin codes, 1 to 7, yeah.
And when there's confusion, people don't know what can be recycled. And you look out at the recycling bins on Friday morning, that's where it is for us, and you'll see back scratchers, you'll see cans, you'll see Barbie dolls. I mean, you'll
brake
see all
pads.
you'll see all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that if it's a can that you either had food in, or a can that you had a liquid in that you drank, or even that didn't, but it's pretty obvious that can be recycled. Not like, say, there's black plastic, which is worse than other plastics to recycle, or various colors, glass. You go up to Massachusetts and they kind of separate out the green glass from the brown glass from the clear glass and all this other stuff. But cans are cans, and it's a lot easier and a lot simpler to get people to recycle them.
Right. I think that's another benefit of our container, that it is pretty clear. You just empty it out, rinse it out a little bit, put it in the recycling bin. And we have an ambitious sustainability strategy with a lot of different work streams to it. But one I want to highlight is we're looking at the messaging on the can. So the typical can, including the one I'm holding in my hand.
Oh, if only you could see.
If only if you could see. It says, please recycle. So most all cans say that very just informational, please recycle. It's not motivational. And that's something that some recent research from Penn State University, they did a variety of field tests looking at if you, instead of say, please recycle, you emphasize to people the transformational nature of the product, that this can will be another can, or this can will be another product, recycling rates go up. So one of the things we're trying to do here in the United States is to apply to the cans here a message that is used in Europe and around the world: metal recycles forever, right? So it gets at that idea that we've talked about a couple times, that the aluminum can be recycled over and over again without any loss in quality. Metal Recycles Forever emphasizes that, and then it's on the container so that it's a really also precise way to reach the people we're trying to reach, the can users. Yeah. So our hope is that we can get brands to choose to put Metal Recycles Forever on there, and then it leads to motivating people to recycle more.
We've increasingly seen that it's not about selling products, it's about telling the story. And if you can tell the story on the packaging, it starts there. If you can tell the story about what happens to products, if you can tell the story about what you mean to the community, you're going to find more customers. And a perfect example is we did our annual NACS consumer fuel survey. And one of the questions of the 100 questions we ask is, beyond the quality of the food or beverages inside the store and the gas price, we're going to list 5 things here. And we want you to say whether or not this is the number one reason you'd go to the store besides those factors. And no doubt that, no surprise, I mean, convenience won out. Half of the people said convenient location, easy to get in, easy to get out. Mm-hmm. Number 2 was great employees. Number 3 was some sort of sustainability program. And is particularly pronounced when we segmented out customers and we looked at frequent customers. Frequent customers go multiple times a week. Rare customers go once a month or less. But the frequent customers, 12% of them, said that they go to stores based on their sustainability programs.
Wow.
And that's a huge number. And if that number can grow by just telling a story, I think there's a lot of promise in that people will drive out of their way because of the story you've told about the products you're selling and what they can do about it to make things a little bit better in their neighborhood and a little further out there.
I agree. And I appreciate you both letting me tell the story here of aluminum beverage cans, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand some of these basic facts, that it has this higher economic value, that it can be recycled over and over again without any loss in quality, and that most of the time it gets turned into a new can.
Look at that. You got the 100, the 200, I don't watch Jeopardy enough to know how high it goes up to, but...
Well,
you got on the round, Carolyn.
Right. I know, right? And the $1,000 question is?
Yes. No. So one other thing, and I love your phrase that we're having a moment, and reading about the Super Bowl this year that they had, they tried to get rid of, or they did get rid of all their single-use plastics. Mm-hmm. And the way that they saw as a solution to do that is they had aluminum cups. So if you bought any sort of dispensed beverage, it came in an aluminum cup. It's not a can, but it's something that felt a lot better to people, that it was going to have a reuse than plastic. And I think that's an important statement that they're making at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, the aluminum cups have the same underlying facts that I'm talking about with aluminum beverage cans. You know, aluminum is aluminum, and the metal that is there has the same characteristics, same sustainability advantages.
I had
the only difference is that thing in the aluminum cup cost $27 for a diet drink. So you probably saved that because it's a memory.
We'll see how much penetration they get in the fraternity Greek houses for the beer pong, but we'll see.
Oh, you might get a dent in your table on that one. I had a energy drink. It was an energy drink too, but it was in a bottle can, an aluminum bottle. Sorry, I didn't use the right word, but it had the twist off. It was resealable. And I thought that was really neat because cans, you can drink from it, but you can't quite seal it back up. I mean, I can stick I don't know if you did it, but you stick a napkin in it and it like...
No,
it doesn't work. And it keeps the bubbles in and makes it better for when you come back the next day.
They're food safety experts right now squirming, but continue.
But anyway, just having the cap on it to make it resealable makes like bottled or canned water, I guess, whatever you would call it, something that I could see more of in the future. Drinks that have the resealable tops that we would sell in stores that are the same sizes as today's plastic bottles.
For sure. No, aluminum bottles definitely have that advantage, being resealable.
So what is the one thing to leave our listeners with that they need to know about cans that they didn't know 20-some minutes ago?
I think it's that, to me, it's the one thing that you can feel the most confident when you put your recyclables in the recycling bin. This is the thing that the recyclers are going to want because it's the most valuable material in the recycling stream, and that the can makers want to make back into new cans. You can't really say both of those things about any of those other recyclables. And so that's what I want to leave people with, that you should feel good about putting your can in the recycling bin. And I know when I'm like jogging around DC, it's like I feel bad seeing the cans lying around because I know their value. I know what they can be turned into. And that's what I hope people understand after listening to this.
And my final question, what do you do with the tab? Tab on or tab off?
Who's taking the tab off? Aren't you then risking injury? Like, isn't it there for a reason?
Some people do it. Well, it has been, I've learned a lot on here, and I knew stuff before, but
if you turn the tab the other way, though, you can put the straw in and it won't move.
And
the metal
let's
straw.
talk about straws on another episode. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find your podcast?
So sustainabilitydefined.com or anywhere you get your podcast, you can download it. And then cancentral.com is CMI's website.
Really great marketing materials on there as well that you can download. And you can learn all about the infinitely recyclable aluminum. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.